There is a moment in Richard Feynman's life that captures the essence of his relationship with curiosity. He was a young man, perhaps 12 or 13 years old, and he was repairing radios for his neighbors. This was during the Great Depression, and a teenager who could fix a broken radio was a valuable asset. Feynman would take the radios apart, study the circuits, and figure out what was wrong. But he didn't just fix them. He wanted to understand them. He would ask himself questions that went far beyond the immediate problem. Why did this particular component fail? How did the signal travel through the wires? What was actually happening inside those vacuum tubes? He was not satisfied with a superficial fix. He wanted to know the mechanism, the principle, the underlying truth. This was not just a hobby. It was a philosophy. It was the beginning of a lifelong commitment to understanding the world at its deepest level. This insatiable curiosity is the driving force behind everything Feynman accomplished. It was not a casual interest or a passing fancy. It was a relentless, almost obsessive need to know. He once said, "I have a friend who's an artist, and he sometimes takes a view which I don't agree with. He'll hold up a flower and say, 'Look how beautiful it is,' and I'll agree. But then he'll say, 'I, as an artist, can see how beautiful a flower is. But you, as a scientist, take it all apart, and it becomes a dull thing. And I think he's kind of nutty.'" Feynman went on to explain that he could appreciate the beauty of the flower, but he could also appreciate the beauty of its structure, the intricate mechanisms of its cells, the processes of photosynthesis, the evolutionary history that shaped it. He saw more beauty, not less. Curiosity for Feynman was not a reduction of wonder. It was an amplification. Today, we are going to explore this curiosity mindset. We are going to look at why curiosity is not just a trait you are born with, but a skill you can cultivate. We are going to examine the psychological barriers that suppress curiosity, the practical strategies Feynman used to keep his curiosity alive, and the profound benefits of a curious life. By the end of this episode, you will see curiosity not as a luxury, but as a necessity for thinking well, living fully, and making sense of a complex world. Let us begin by understanding what curiosity really is. Curiosity is the desire to know, to understand, to explore. It is the opposite of complacency. It is the engine of learning. It is what drives us to ask questions, to seek answers, to push the boundaries of our knowledge. Psychologists distinguish between two types of curiosity. The first is epistemic curiosity, the desire to acquire knowledge and understanding for its own sake. This is the kind of curiosity that drives scientists, artists, and philosophers. It is a deep, intrinsic motivation to make sense of the world. The second is diversive curiosity, the desire for novelty and stimulation. This is the kind of curiosity that makes you scroll through social media, click on clickbait headlines, or watch cat videos. Diversive curiosity is shallow. It is easily satisfied and quickly fades. Epistemic curiosity is deep. It is sustained. It leads to real learning, real understanding, real growth. Feynman was a master of epistemic curiosity. He was not interested in trivia or gossip. He was interested in the fundamental nature of reality. He was interested in the big questions, the deep questions, the questions that have no easy answers. So how can you cultivate epistemic curiosity? The first step is to give yourself permission to be curious. This sounds simple, but it is surprisingly difficult. We are conditioned from a young age to be efficient, to be productive, to get things done. Curiosity is often seen as a distraction, a waste of time. Feynman rejected this view. He believed that curiosity was the most productive thing you could do. He would spend hours watching ants in his backyard, following their trails, designing experiments to see how they communicate. Was this going to win him a Nobel Prize? No. But it trained his mind to observe, to hypothesize, and to question. It kept his curiosity muscle strong. You can do the same. Give yourself permission to follow your curiosity, even when it seems useless. Follow the question that intrigues you. Spend time exploring ideas that have no obvious payoff. This is not wasted time. It is investment in your own intellectual vitality. The second step is to cultivate a beginner's mind. This is the Zen concept of Shoshin, which means approaching every situation with openness, eagerness, and a lack of preconceptions. When you have a beginner's mind, you see the world with fresh eyes. You are not weighed down by assumptions. You are not blinded by expertise. You are able to see what is actually there rather than what you expect to see. Feynman cultivated this mindset deliberately. He would approach problems as if he were seeing them for the first time. He would ask questions that everyone else had stopped asking. He would challenge assumptions that everyone else had accepted. You can do the same. When you encounter a familiar situation, ask yourself, what if I were seeing this for the first time? What would I notice? What would I question? This practice keeps your mind flexible and open. The third step is to ask why relentlessly. Children are natural questioners. They ask why constantly. But as we grow older, we stop asking. We accept the world as it is. We take things for granted. Feynman never stopped asking why. He would dig deeper and deeper past the surface-level explanations, past the convenient answers, until he reached the fundamental principles. This is the practice of the 5 whys, which we discussed in an earlier episode. When you encounter a problem, ask why 5 times. Each why takes you one level deeper, revealing the underlying causes that are not immediately obvious. This practice transforms superficial understanding into deep understanding. It transforms a passive acceptance of the world into an active engagement with it. The fourth step is to embrace uncertainty. Curiosity is the willingness to not know. It is the comfort with ambiguity. Feynman was famous for saying, "I don't know." He wasn't embarrassed by it. He saw it as an honest assessment of his own knowledge. He understood that the pursuit of knowledge is a journey, not a destination. There will always be questions that cannot be answered, mysteries that cannot be solved. The curious person embraces this. They are not threatened by uncertainty. They are motivated by it. You can cultivate this mindset by practicing intellectual humility. When you don't know something, say so. When you are unsure, admit it. This is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of strength. It is the strength to be honest with yourself and to remain open to learning. The fifth step is to connect your interests. Feynman was a master of connecting disparate fields. He saw connections between physics and art, between science and music, between mathematics and biology. This cross-pollination of ideas is a powerful engine of curiosity. When you connect one interest to another, you see new questions, new possibilities, new insights. You can cultivate this practice by asking yourself, how does this relate to what I already know? And what does this remind me of? And what would this look like from another perspective? These questions build bridges between different areas of knowledge, creating a rich, interconnected web of understanding. The sixth step is to follow your questions wherever they lead. Feynman was notorious for this. He would start with a simple question and follow it down a rabbit hole, regardless of where it took him. This is how he discovered new physics. He didn't start with a grand theory. He started with a curiosity about a specific phenomenon. He followed the question and let it lead him to unexpected places. You can do the same. When you are curious about something, follow that curiosity. Read a book, take a class, talk to an expert, conduct a small experiment. Don't worry about whether it is useful or practical. Follow the question for its own sake. This practice will not only deepen your understanding, it will also make your life richer and more interesting. Now let me share some stories from Feynman's life that illustrate these principles in action. One of my favorites is the story of the cracked pots. Feynman was a master safecracker during his time at Los Alamos, working on the Manhattan Project. He didn't do it for any practical reason. He just found the challenge interesting. He would spend hours trying to figure out the combinations of the safes, not to steal secrets, but because the puzzle fascinated him. He discovered that many of the safes had default combinations, left unchanged by their owners. He could open them with a few simple tricks. This became a game, a form of intellectual play. But it also taught him something valuable about human nature. People are often lazy and predictable. This insight proved useful in his later work, when he needed to understand how people think and make decisions. The safecracking was not a waste of time. It was a form of curiosity that yielded unexpected benefits. Another story is about Feynman's fascination with biology. In the 1950s, he became interested in how cells divide. He knew nothing about biology, but he was curious. He went to a laboratory and asked if he could work there. He was given a simple task: observing how bacteria move. He spent hours at the microscope, watching the bacteria, trying to understand their behavior. He didn't make any major discoveries in biology, but he did learn something important: the value of careful observation. He learned to see things that others had missed. This skill would serve him well in physics, where many of his breakthroughs came from simply looking at problems in a new way. There is also the story of Feynman's interest in art. In his later years, he took up drawing and painting. He was not a great artist, but he was a curious one. He would study the masters, analyze their techniques, and try to understand what made their work beautiful. He even wrote a book about it, The Pleasure of Finding Things Out. He discovered that art and science are not opposites. They are different ways of seeing the world. Both require observation, creativity, and a willingness to explore the unknown. This connection enriched his life and his work. Now, let us consider the benefits of a curious life. The first benefit is intellectual growth. Curiosity is the engine of learning. Without it, we stop growing. We stagnate. We become stuck in our ways. With it, we are constantly expanding our knowledge, refining our understanding, and discovering new possibilities. The second benefit is resilience. Curious people are better equipped to handle uncertainty and change. They see challenges as opportunities to learn, not as threats. They are more adaptable, more flexible, more open to new experiences. The third benefit is creativity. Curiosity is the fuel for creativity. It drives us to explore new ideas, to make new connections, to see the world in new ways. The fourth benefit is meaning. Curious people find more meaning in life because they are constantly engaged with the world. They are not passive observers, they are active participants. They find joy in discovery, satisfaction in understanding, and purpose in the pursuit of knowledge. Feynman once said, "I have no talent for making things simple. I only have a talent for being interested." This is a profound admission. He didn't see himself as a genius. He saw himself as someone who was deeply, relentlessly, and joyfully interested. This interest was the source of all his achievements. It was the engine of his creativity, the foundation of his understanding, and the key to his happiness. And this is the most important lesson of all. You don't need to be a genius to think like Feynman. You just need to be curious. You need to be willing to ask questions, to explore the unknown, to embrace uncertainty. You need to be willing to follow your curiosity wherever it leads. So let me give you a practical challenge. For the next 30 days, I want you to practice curiosity. Pick one thing every day that you are curious about. It can be anything: a scientific concept, a historical event, a piece of art, a philosophical question, a personal habit. Spend 15 minutes exploring it. Read about it. Think about it. Ask questions about it. Write down what you discover. At the end of the 30 days, you will have a rich collection of knowledge, a deeper understanding of the world, and a new habit of curiosity that will serve you for the rest of your life. But more than that, you will have begun to cultivate the Feynman mind. You will have begun to see the world not as a collection of boring, familiar objects, but as an infinite playground of discovery. You will have begun to ask the questions that matter, to seek the answers that satisfy, to live a life of intellectual adventure. This is the gift of curiosity, and it is a gift that you can give to yourself. Feynman once said, "I was born not knowing and have had only a little time to change that here and there." This is the humblest and most beautiful statement from one of the greatest minds of the 20th century. He started where we all start, not knowing. The only difference was that he never stopped trying to change that, and he enjoyed every moment of it. He felt the pleasure of finding things out, and that pleasure is available to every single one of us. You don't need to be a physicist. You don't need to win a Nobel Prize. You just need to be curious. You just need to be willing to ask the question. And you just need to be willing to follow it where it leads. Stay curious, keep asking, and never stop exploring. Until next time, remember, the most important thing is not the answer, it is the question. And the most important question is always, why?